In this video, I'll be showing you how to deploy a React application to a remote Linux server. On the Linux server, we're going to use a piece of software called NGINX. This is going to act as our web server. Then from our local computer, we're going to create the React application, and I'm going to show you how we write a very simple deployment script that will automatically push all of this code to the remote server, and that way we don't have to do any manual changes on there. We can simply work on the project from our local computer, run one script, and then that will automatically be updated and our application will be deployed. Now, this application will be viewable from anywhere. We're going to use the IP address of the machine to view it. However, if you want to add a domain to this, you can do that. You just have to tweak a few things after going through this tutorial. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to deploy a React application is somewhere to deploy it to. So we need a Linux server. For this video, I'm going to get one from Linode. Now, Linode is the sponsor of this video, and that is why if you click the link in the description or go to linode.com/techwithtim, you can get $100 in free credit for 60 days when you sign up for a new account. Now, that's going to allow you to get a free server here for this tutorial. So you can use Linode if you'd like to. Again, you can go to the link in the description, get $100 in free credit, or use any Linux server that you have access to. Now, I do want to mention here that I'm going to be working with Linode for another series very shortly. And in that series, we're going to work on a much more advanced portfolio website that's going to act as a really good resume project. Now, I'm going to show you how we build out the website, how we deploy the website, connect it to a domain, and then how we use something called GitLab to actually do automatic deployment of code. Now, this is going to look really great on a resume because it shows you know how to build a website, you know how to deploy it, and you know all of the things about hosting and being kind of a system admin and all of those types of skills. So anyway, stay tuned for that if you guys are excited, and make sure to check out the Linode YouTube channel that has a bunch of projects similar to that. I'll leave that in the description. For now, though, I'm going to sign into my Linode account because I already have one. Once I'm there, I'm going to walk you through setting up our Linode, and then we will actually SSH into it and start doing all of the setup for our React application deployment. All right, so I'm on the Linode dashboard here. I've just signed into my test account where I don't actually host any of my real projects, but I do want to mention that I've been using Linode for well over 2 years now. I have a few websites hosted with them, some databases, a Kubernetes cluster, and they've been nothing but great. Great service, great uptime, and it's actually quite nice. Whenever I've had a problem, I've just picked up the phone and called them, and I've actually had a human respond to me, which is quite nice in 2022, considering it's actually quite a challenge to get to a real human on a lot of support lines. So if you guys are considering a place to host your website or project, I would definitely recommend Linode, and well, that is why I've been working with them for so long on this channel and why they are sponsoring this video. Anyways, we're going to click on Create Linode here. You can also do that from the top, click Create Linode. And I will mention that they do have some one-click installs here from the marketplace. So we don't have to run through all of these setup steps, but I just want to do it from scratch in case any of you guys aren't using Linode. So they have like Django, Flask, GitLab, me and MongoDB, etc. So you can probably find one in here for your project that you're hosting, but I'm going to do it from scratch again because I'm not sure if you guys are going to be using Linode or not. So I'm going to choose my distribution as Debian 11. Debian 10 would work as well. I'm going to go region. For now, I'm going to go Toronto. And then we have to choose our Linode plan. Now, the cheapest plan they have is the Nanode 1 GB, which is just a shared CPU. It's $5 a month. However, for a React application, it's probably best to go with something a little bit stronger. So I'm going to go with the dedicated server here with 8 GB of RAM. You could probably do 4 as well. Again, this is just for testing, so it doesn't really matter too much. For now, though, for the Linode label, I'll just call this my React app, and then I need to put in my root password. Make sure you do not forget this password. All right, so now we can just go down here and click on Create Linode. This is going to take a few minutes to be created, and once that is done, I will be right back. All right, so my Linode is now running, and what I want to look for is the IP address. Now, I can find that by looking for the IP address right here, the IPv4, or just copying this SSH access, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to copy this right here, and this is what we're going to use to, well, access the Linode. So open up a command prompt or some type of terminal, depending on the operating system that you're on, and then simply paste in that command. Looks like I didn't actually copy it though, so let's hit that button one more time. So paste that in, SSH, and then root at whatever the IP address of your server is, and hit enter. You're going to have to type in yes here, and then enter the password. So let me enter that right now. You won't see anything when you're entering the password. Keep that in mind. You still just need to type it in correctly. Okay, so let's clear the screen. Now we are signed in to our server and we can start setting this up. So the first thing that we actually want to do here is just configure a few things to have some better security on our server. Since this is going to be on the internet, it's going to be hosting a website, we want to disable the root access so that no one can sign in as the root user and do anything malicious with our server. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just type apt update like this, just to update all of the software on our server. We're then going to upgrade. We're going to configure the time zone, which is usually just a best practice, and then we're going to disable the root access. So I'm going to type apt upgrade here after I have updated. I'm going to hit Y there, run through all of this. And as I said, the next thing that we want to do now is configure the time zone. Now, depending on the distribution you're on, this command may vary, but I believe we can simply use dpkg hyphen and then re and configure. If we could spell configure correctly like that, then we're going to type TZ data like that, standing for time zone data, hyphen set, and then time zone like that, okay? Now, when we enter that, we should get some type of graphical user interface pop up where we can select our current time zone. So I'm going to go to where I am, which is not Africa, America, and I'm going to look for Toronto, which is the closest city to me. Now, of course, look for whatever city is closest to you for the time zone here. In this case, I'm going to go Toronto. Okay, enter, and now I believe I have configured the time zone. We can see that right here. So local time is 1802, so 502, which is correct. And if we want to check that, we can just type in date, and sorry, not 502, 602 is the correct time. Okay, so let's clear. The time zone has now been set. Now that we've done that, we want to create a new user that we're going to be able to sign in as and then disable the root user. So I'm going to type add user like that, and then I'm going to put my name as Tim. When I do that, it should ask me for a password for this user, so I'm going to enter the password. Now let's enter it correctly a second time. Okay, and you can enter this data if you want, but I'm just going to put the full name and then go from there. Okay, so I've now created a new user that I can use to sign in to this server. This is the one we want to use from now on because we don't want to be using the root user. We want to disable that one. However, we need to first add this user to the sudo group. That way we have access to administer privileges, right? So for now, I'm going to type add user Tim and then sudo, and this will add Tim to the sudo group. Perfect. And now that we've done that, we just want to test and make sure we can sign in as Tim, and then we can disable the password for the root user so that you can't sign in as it. So let's clear. Let's type log out. Okay. And now I'm going to SSH, and I'm going to SSH as my new user, which is Tim. When I do this now, let's type in the password. Okay. And there we go. We've signed in as Tim at localhost. Everything is working. So now that we're signed in as Tim, what I can do is disable the root user password. So I'm going to type sudo and then passwd like that, -d, and then root. And this is going to remove the password from the root user. Now I need to type in my password to be able to do this. And there we go. That's all good. Now we also can lock the password. We can do one or the other, or we can do both, which is what I'm going to do right here. So sudo passwd -l root, this simply locks it. So we've now deleted it and then locked the password, and now you cannot sign in as root. And if we want to test that, we can try. So let's try to sign in as root. Let's type in the password we had before, and we should see this no longer works. And there we go, access denied, right? So let's get out of that and SSH now as Tim, and then configure or continue with the rest of our setup. All right, so now that we've done that, we're going to start working with NGINX. So we need to install that. So we're going to type sudo apt install and then NGINX like that. We're going to hit Y for yes and install that. Now that we have installed that, though, what we need to do is make a folder where our source code is going to live. So let me clear that. We're going to type sudo mkdir. This is going to be in var www/ and then here, the name of the directory is going to be the public IP address of our server or the domain that you're using when you're hosting this website. So it's going to be one or the other. In my case, I don't have a domain, so I'm just going to use the public IP address, which is right here. So let me copy that and paste that in. Okay, so let's hit enter here. We've now created that folder. Now that we've done that, we just need to run two commands here that are going to change the permissions and ownership of this directory. I'm not going to explain exactly what these are going to do, but just follow along. I'm going to type sudo chmod 755-r, and then we need the path to the directory we just created. So let's put that in. What this allows us to do is essentially have everyone be able to access the contents of this directory. That's about as far as I'll explain that. And then next, we're going to have a sudo chown -r. And it's important here that you put the user that you created. So in my case, I created the Tim user. I'm signed in as Tim. If you made Joe, whatever, you're going to, replace that here, whatever user you're currently signed in as. Then I'm going to do www -data and then /var /www/ and then the name of our directory and hit enter. Now this is going to change the ownership so that the current user is the owner of this directory. And the reason we need to do this is so that when we actually run our deployment script, which we're going to do at the end of the video, it allows us to update the contents of the directory. It's doing a little bit more than that, but that's kind of the best way that I can explain that without making this overly complicated. Anyways, you don't have to understand how these work, but that is what we're doing for now. Okay, now that we've done that, we need to make a configuration file here for NGINX to kind of link the directory that we just created. So the way we're going to do this is sudo nano, and then we're going to type /etc/ this is going to be nginx / and then sites available, and then we're going to make the name of this configuration file the same name as the directory that we just created. So it's going to be 192.53.122.115. Again, if you're using a domain, then you would put the domain here. Okay, so let's hit enter. And now we're going to type in our configuration file. So this is going to be server. There's going to be 2 curly parentheses like this, or curly brackets, whatever you call them. We're going to say listen, and then this is going to be on port 80 if we type listen correctly. We're then going to type listen again. And we're going to type : inside of a set of square brackets, and then :80 like that, and then a semicolon. Then we're going to type root, and for root, we're going to put the path to the directory where our code's going to live, which is var /www, and then it's going to be the public IP address. Again, if you had a domain, you'd put that there. And then lastly, we're going to say that our index is equal to index.html. Okay, so that's all we need for our configuration file. I've just saved that with Control S. Really, the only thing you should need to change here is this so that it's equal to whatever the name of your directory is. Don't worry too much again about exactly how this works and what it's doing. It's just required for NGINX, and you do not need to understand it to be able to host the website. But I will mention that index.html, it's important that where your React app is kind of being injected into is called this. And if you created your React app with create React app from npm or npx or whatever the command is, then this will already be set up for you. But just make sure your base HTML page is index.html. Okay, so let's exit out of that. Now that we've created the configuration file, what we need to do here is just test NGINX and see if it's still working. So we're going to type sudo nginx-t, standing for test. And when I do that, it says the configuration file is okay. Configuration file test is successful. Okay. However, what I do actually need to do here is I need to unlink the default configuration file and link the new configuration file that I just created. I forgot I need to do that first before I run this test. So I'm going to type the following: sudo unlink like that, and then this is going to be /etc/nginx/ and this is sites enabled, and then this is going to be /default. Now this is going to unlink the default configuration file, and we're going to kind of replace that link with the configuration file that we just created. So now we need to make a new link. Again, don't worry too much about exactly what this is doing, but I'm going to type sudo ln-s. This is going to create a symbolic link. I'm going to type /etc/nginx or nginx/sites, and then this is going to be available. Make sure you do available, not enabled here. And then / and then the name of our directory, which is right here. And we're going to link this with /etc/nginx/ and then this is going to be sites enabled like that, okay? And hit enter. All right, so now we have removed the default link and we have made a link to our configuration file. And now we're going to type sudo nginx-t and make sure that this is all working, and it looks like it is. Okay, now that we've done that, we are going to restart NGINX. So we're going to type sudo systemctl, and then this is going to be restart nginx or nginx like that. We can rerun the test if we want, and everything is all good. Okay, so now that we have done that, we are pretty much finished everything that we need to do on the remote Linux server. We now need to simply deploy our code to the directory that we created, because again, that's where our code's going to live, and we're going to do that from our local machine. So let me get out of here, go to my local machine, let's create a React application and then deploy that. All right, so I've gone back to my local machine here, and I'm just gonna ask that if you haven't already, just download Git, and also make sure you install Git Bash if you are on Windows. Now, if you're on Linux or Mac, you don't necessarily need to do this, but on Windows, it's gonna be easier for us to use Git Bash to do the rest of the tutorial. So just install that, and once it's installed, you should just be able to type Git Bash like this and open that up. If you're on Mac or Linux, then you can just use your default terminal because the commands we need are already installed on Mac and Linux. I'll leave this link in the description, by the way. It's just git-scm.com/downloads. You also can just Google Git Bash or Git download, and then of course go to this page. Okay, now that we've done that, I've just opened up a project here in Visual Studio Code just because I'm going to create my React app in here and just edit actually 1 or 2 files. So I'm going to create a React application. I assume most of you already have one, but I'm going to type npx, and then this is going to be create React app, and let's just call this demo for now. That's going to take a second, and of course, to be able to run this command, you need node.js, but I assume if you're watching how to deploy a React app, you have Node.js installed, and well, you have a React app that you'd like to deploy. All right, so the React app is finally finished being created, and let's just open this up quickly in here. Now, one thing I want to note is that for what I'm about to do next, you need to make sure you have this build command, because what we're going to do is build the React application, and we're then going to transfer this build to the server, and the server will then kind of display that build, right? Or we'll be able to access the contents of the build. So just if you don't have this build command, then this isn't going to work. So make sure you have some type of build command called build built into your script here for your React app. Anyways, inside of this application, I'm going to make a new file here, and I'm going to call this deploy.sh. All right, so this is going to be a shell script that we're going to run, and inside of here, I'm going to write a very basic script. So I'm going to type echo, and then this is going to say switching to branch master. And the command that we want to run here is going to be git checkout master, just to make sure we build from the master branch. So I'm going to type git checkout master. Essentially, we're going to run this script every time we want to push the most recent code to, to our server. So you can modify this how you see fit, but there's only a few commands in here anyways. So, okay, so switching to master branch, git checkout master, echo is just like the print command, right? We're going to type echo, and we're going to type building app, and then ... And then I'm going to type npm run build. Again, you need Node.js installed here on your local machine. Then I'm going to type echo and deploying files to server ... And then here, this is the command that we really want to pay attention to. We're going to use a tool called scp, which allows us to perform file transfer. We're going to type build / and then we are going to put an asterisk here, and actually we're going to do scp-r and then build /*, which stands for all of the files inside of the build directory as well as any of the directories in there, and actually this is a lowercase r for recursive mode. Okay, and then where do we want to put this? Well, we want to put this to tim at, and then the IP address of our server, which, do I still have it on the clipboard? I do. Okay, and then this is going to be :var /www / and then again the IP address of our server and /. So let me break this down a bit. We're saying scp, which is kind of the file transfer command, -r standing for recursive mode. We're doing build / and then an asterisk. The build folder will be created inside of our React application when we run the npm run build command. Then we're saying, where do we want to put this? Well, we want to put this onto this remote server. So we're saying tim, which is our user, at, and then this is going to be the IP address of the server, and then where on the server do we want it to go? We'll want it on /var /www / and then the name of the directory that we created, which Tim is the owner of and has access to. Okay, now that we have done that, we can echo done ! And that's all we need for this sh file. Okay, so now that we've created the deploy.sh, we just need to change the permissions so it's executable. We then can run it and everything will be good, and we can actually view our application live. So now let's open up Git Bash. Now, if you are on Mac or Linux, you don't have to open Git Bash. You can just go to any terminal. And I'm just going to cd into the directory where my React app is, which is on my desktop. So I'm going to type cd desktop. I have this test React app folder. And then I have the demo folder, and in here you see I have all of my stuff. And I'm going to run the following command, which is going to be chmod, and then this is going to be u+x, and then deploy.sh. Notice deploy.sh is inside of the current directory where I am. I'm going to hit enter. That will change the permissions for this file. Now, I don't actually know if this does anything on Windows, but on Mac and Linux, you will need that to make this an executable file. And now that we have that, we're going to type // and then deploy.sh. And this should actually just run the deploy script for us. So let's hit enter. Okay, so it's going to start running this, switching to branch master, already on master, building app. Okay, so it's building it here using that npm build command. Then we should see an echo for deploying it. Then we can go look on the server, see if it's deployed, and visit the public IP address of our server, and we should see the React app. Okay, it says deploying files to server. I spelled server wrong, of course. I need to type in my password to sign in here. So I'm going to type this in, hit enter. Okay, all of my files get sent over there, and then we have done. Nice. Now, if we go here, I can SSH into my server. I just need to re-sign in because I signed out. So let's go here. Okay, let's cd into /var/www/ and then this, and then ls, and notice all of the files here for my website are here, and I have my index.html. Nice. So now that those are all there, all I need to do is go to my browser and just type in the public IP address. So let's paste. Oops, that's not what I wanted. I guess I can just grab it from here. So let's copy that and let's paste it and hit enter. And notice I get my React application. There we go. Now, if I want to actually modify this application, all I have to do now is let's, I guess, keep that open. We can close this for now, though. I can go to, say, my src and my app.js, and let's change the p tag here to say, Tim is great, ! I'm going to save that, go back to git bash, or again, just any terminal if you're on Mac or Linux, rerun that command. We'll have to type in our password again once the build is done, and then you'll see it will be updated on our server. So now whenever you make a change, you just run the deploy script, right? It will deploy. Of course, you can change it if you want to, and you will be good to go. All right, so let's type in the password. Okay, hit enter. All right, let's go here, and let's give it a refresh. And notice that now I get Tim is great. There you go. We have just deployed a React application. Now, it is a little bit more advanced than this when you're dealing with a backend and a database and domains and all of that type of stuff. But if you're just trying to host some type of hobby project here, then this definitely will have got you up and running, or at least gave you kind of a good starting point here on how to host a React app. So with that said, I am going to end the video here. There's nothing more for me to show you. There is a guide that has a lot of these commands in the description in case you're getting a bit lost, you want to reference it and read more about what I was doing. With that said, though, if you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Another massive thank you to Linode for sponsoring this video, and I hope to see you in another YouTube video.